Captain Jake Morrison stared at the strange signal on his ship's screen. The human exploration vessel New Horizon had been flying through deep space for 3 weeks, looking for new planets and resources. Jake had seen many weird things in space, but this signal was different. It was weak and broken, like someone was trying to talk but could barely speak. "What do you think it is, Captain?" asked Lieutenant Amy Parker, his second in command. She was young but smart, and Jake trusted her judgment. "I'm not sure," Jake said, adjusting the controls. "But it's definitely not natural. Someone is trying to send a message." The signal became clearer as they got closer to its source. It was coming from a solar system about 2 light years away. Jake could see on his star charts that the system had been marked as under observation by the Galactic Council, but no ships were supposed to be there. "Captain, I'm getting translation data," said Communications Officer Danny Foster. "It's in broken galactic common. Listen to this." The message played through the ship's speakers. The voice was strange, like wind chimes mixed with music, but the words were clear enough. "Please help us. Our sun is dying. We have little time left. 2 billion souls need rescue. Please, anyone who can hear this, help us." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. 2 billion people were asking for help, and their sun was dying. He had heard of this before. When a star collapsed, it destroyed everything around it. Planets, moons, and all life would be wiped out. "Danny, can you get more information about this system?" Jake asked. "Already on it, Captain. The system is called Kepler 442b. The star is about to become a white dwarf. According to our data, it will happen in about 4 months. The species living there calls themselves Viridians." Amy looked at Jake with concern. "Captain, if their sun is dying, why isn't anyone helping them? The Galactic Council should have sent rescue ships by now." Jake wondered the same thing. The Galactic Council was supposed to help all intelligent species in the galaxy. Earth had joined the Council 5 years ago, and humans were still learning how things worked in galactic politics. But letting an entire species die seemed wrong. "Set course for the Kepler 442b system," Jake ordered. "We need to see what's happening there." The journey took 2 days. When they arrived, Jake saw something that made his heart sink. The Viridian homeworld was beautiful, with crystal cities that sparkled like diamonds. But the sun was clearly dying. It had turned red and was much larger than it should be. Jake knew that soon it would collapse and destroy everything. "Captain, we're getting hundreds of signals from the planet," Danny reported. "They're all asking for help. It sounds like they've been sending these messages for months." Jake listened to the messages. The Viridians spoke in musical tones, and even through the translation software, he could hear their fear and sadness. They talked about their families, their children, their art and culture that would be lost forever. "Have they received any replies?" Jake asked. "Yes, sir, but not good ones. The Altarian Empire said helping them would cost too much money. The Zephyrian Collective said it was just nature taking its course. The Hegemony said they couldn't interfere with natural stellar events." Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. Every major power in the galaxy had basically told the Viridians to die quietly. These were people with families, hopes, and dreams, and everyone was just going to let them disappear. "What about the Galactic Council?" Amy asked. "They voted last month," Danny said, reading from his screen. "The motion to provide aid was rejected by a vote of 847 to 23. Only the smaller species voted to help." Jake felt angry. He had grown up hearing stories about how humanity had come together to help each other during disasters. When earthquakes hit, countries sent rescue teams. When floods came, neighbors helped neighbors. But out here in space, it seemed like nobody cared about anyone else. "Captain, "We're receiving a direct communication from the planet," Danny announced. The screen showed a figure that looked like it was made of living crystal. It was beautiful and seemed to glow with its own light. When it spoke, its voice was like a gentle song. "Unknown vessel, this is Council Speaker Harthick of the Viridian people. We thank you for coming to our system. We have not seen a ship in many weeks. Are you here to help us?" Jake felt the weight of the moment. He was just one captain with one ship. He couldn't save 2 billion people, but he also couldn't just leave them to die. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel New Horizon. We received your distress signal. We want to help, but we need to understand your situation better." The crystal being seemed to shimmer with hope. "Captain Morrison, we have been asking for help for 8 months. Our sun will collapse in 16 weeks. We have built evacuation ships, but they can only carry a few thousand people. We need transport for our entire population." Jake did quick math in his head. Even if every human ship in the galaxy came to help, they couldn't move 2 billion people in 16 weeks. The job was impossible. "We will do what we can," Jake promised. "But I need to contact my superiors on Earth. This is bigger than one ship can handle." After the communication ended, Jake sat in his captain's chair, thinking. He knew that helping the Viridians would probably get humanity in trouble with the Galactic Council. Earth was still new to galactic politics, and making enemies of the major powers could hurt humans everywhere. But he also knew that doing nothing was wrong. His parents had taught him that when someone needs help, you help them. It didn't matter if it was hard or dangerous or expensive. You help because it's the right thing to do. "Danny, send a priority message to Admiral Lisa Hayes at Earth Command. Tell her we have a situation that requires immediate attention. Amy, I want you to scan the Viridian planet and get me detailed information about their people and their needs." "Yes, Captain," both officers replied. As Jake watched the dying star through his ship's window, he wondered if humanity would make the same choice as the other species. Would they decide that saving aliens was too hard, too expensive, or too dangerous? Or would they remember what it meant to be human? The answer would determine not just the fate of the Viridians, but the future of humanity in the galaxy. Admiral Lisa Hayes read Captain Morrison's report for the 3rd time, but the words didn't get any easier to accept. 2 billion people were going to die, and nobody in the galaxy seemed to care. She sat in her office at Earth Command, looking out at the blue sky and wondering how humanity had ended up in this situation. "Ma'am, President Carter is on the secure line," her assistant announced. Lisa picked up the communication device. "Mr. President, I assume you've read the report?" "I have," President Alan Carter replied. His voice sounded tired. "Lisa, tell me honestly, can we save them?" Lisa looked at the numbers on her screen. "If we use every transport ship we have, every cargo vessel, every passenger liner, we might be able to evacuate maybe 10% of their population. But it would mean leaving our own colonies defenseless. What about the other species? Surely someone will help if we lead the way?" "Sir, I've been in contact with our ambassadors. The Altarians are threatening to cut off all trade if we interfere. The Zephyrians are calling it a dangerous precedent. The hegemony has made it clear that any human ship in Viridian space will be considered hostile." There was silence on the line. Lisa knew the president was thinking about the consequences. Earth had worked hard to build relationships with the major galactic powers. Trade with alien species had made Earth richer than ever before. Human colonies were thriving because of alien technology and resources. "Schedule an emergency meeting with the Colonial Assembly," the president finally said. "We need to discuss this properly." 3 days later, the Colonial Assembly met in emergency session. Representatives from every human colony and Earth itself gathered to decide humanity's response to the Viridian crisis. Lisa sat at the briefing table, watching the debate unfold. Senator Ryan Clark from the Mars colony spoke first. We cannot risk humanity's future for aliens we've never met. If we anger the major powers, they could kick us out of the Galactic Council entirely. Our colonies could be cut off from supplies and trade. But these are people, argued Senator Grace Murphy from the Europa Station. 2 billion thinking, feeling beings with families and children. How can we just let them die? Because it's not our problem, Clark shot back. Every species in the galaxy has voted on this. The decision has been made. We're the newest members of the galactic community. We can't just ignore the rules when we don't like them. Commander Beth Williams, head of the Terran fleet, stood up. I've run the numbers. If we strip every defensive ship from every colony, we can maybe save 200 million Viridians. But our colonies would be defenseless for months. If any hostile species decided to attack us, we couldn't protect our own people. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued that humanity had a moral duty to help. Others insisted that humanity's first responsibility was to protect human lives and human interests. A few suggested sending aid money instead of ships, but the Viridians needed transport, not credits. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Earth's top expert on alien species, had been studying the Viridian data. She stood to address the assembly. I've been analyzing the Viridian biology and culture. These beings are unlike anything we've encountered. They're made of living crystal, and they communicate through harmonic frequencies. But more importantly, they have knowledge that could revolutionize our technology. Explain, President Carter requested. Their crystalline structure allows them to process quantum information in ways we can't imagine. They've solved mathematical problems that our best computers can't handle. If we save them, they could help us advance by centuries. Senator Clark scoffed. So now we're supposed to save them because they might be useful to us? That's not much better than letting them die. No, Dr. Rodriguez replied. I'm saying we should save them because it's right. But I'm also saying that doing the right thing might benefit us too. The debate raged for another day. Representatives called their home colonies, asking for guidance. The public opinion was divided. Some humans supported a rescue mission, inspired by their species' history of helping others. Others feared the economic and political consequences of defying the galaxy's major powers. President Carter finally called for a vote. The result was close. 52 votes in favor of a rescue mission, 48 against. But the president had the final decision. The vote is advisory only, Carter announced. The final choice is mine, and I've made it. We're going to help the Viridians. The room erupted in shouting. Some representatives cheered. Others protested angrily. Senator Clark stood up and pointed at the president. You're gambling with every human life in the galaxy. If this goes wrong, their blood will be on your hands. President Carter looked tired but determined. Senator, I've read the history books. I know what happens when good people do nothing while others suffer. I know what happens when we decide that politics is more important than lives. I won't let humanity be remembered as the species that watched genocide and did nothing. The president turned to Commander Williams. Beth, I'm giving you command of Operation Lighthouse. Every available ship, every available crew. We're going to save as many Viridians as we can. Mr. President, the Galactic Council will retaliate. They'll impose sanctions, cut off trade, maybe even use military force. Then we'll deal with that when it comes. But we're not abandoning 2 billion people because it's inconvenient. Within hours, the response from the galactic community was swift and harsh. The Altarian Empire immediately froze all human assets in their space. The Zephyrian Collective closed their borders to human ships. The hegemony issued a formal warning that any human vessel found in Viridian space would be dealt with accordingly. Earth, the stock markets crashed as investors realized that humanity was about to be cut off from galactic trade. Riots broke out in some cities as people panicked about shortages and economic collapse. The governor of the Proxima Centauri colony sent an angry message demanding that the president reconsider, but President Carter didn't change his mind. He appeared on every news channel, speaking directly to the human people. We are facing a test of who we are as a species. We can choose to be safe and comfortable while others die, or we can choose to be the humans our children will be proud of. We can choose to be the species that stands up when everyone else sits down. The speech divided humanity even more. Some colonies announced they would not contribute ships to the rescue mission. Others volunteered every vessel they had. Captain Morrison, still in the Viridian system, reported that more human ships were arriving every day. Dr. Rodriguez worked with the Viridians to understand their needs. She discovered that they couldn't survive in normal atmospheric conditions. Each Viridian needed a special crystalline container that maintained their structure during transport. The containers were expensive and took time to build. How many can we save? President Carter asked during a secure communication. If everything goes perfectly, maybe 400 million, Dr. Rodriguez reported. But that's assuming we have enough ships, enough containers, and enough time. And if everything goes wrong, then we save whoever we can, and we live with the consequences. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council was preparing its own response. Intelligence reports suggested that the hegemony was moving a large fleet toward the Viridian system. The message was clear. Humanity would be stopped, by force if necessary. Commander Williams received reports from her fleet commanders. Many were nervous about confronting the galaxy's major powers. Some asked if they should retreat if faced with superior force. Others requested permission to fight if attacked. "What are your orders, Commander?" asked Captain Morrison during a fleet briefing. Williams looked at the faces of her officers on the communication screen. These were good people, following orders that might get them killed. But they were also humans, and humans didn't abandon those who needed help. "Our orders are simple," she said. "We save as many Viridians as we can. We don't start fights, but we don't run from them either. We came here to do the right thing, and we're going to do it." As the rescue operation continued, more bad news arrived from Earth. The economic sanctions were working. Human colonies were running short on medical supplies, advanced technology, and exotic materials that could only be obtained from alien traders. Some colonial governments were demanding that Earth end the rescue mission before it destroyed humanity's future. President Carter faced the hardest decision of his presidency. He could order the fleet to return home, saving humanity from economic ruin and political isolation. Or he could continue the mission, knowing that it might cost humanity everything. He thought about his own children and what kind of galaxy he wanted to leave them. He thought about the Viridian children who would die if humanity abandoned them. He thought about the history books and how they would record humanity's first great moral test in the galactic community. "Continue the mission," he ordered, "whatever the cost." Captain Jake Morrison watched as another human transport ship arrived in the Viridian system. The Golden Gate was a cargo hauler from Earth, not built for carrying people, but her captain had volunteered anyway. Jake counted the ships on his screen, minus 847 vessels from across human space, everything from military cruisers to civilian passenger liners. "Captain, we have a problem," reported Chief Engineer Danny Foster. "The Viridians can't survive in our normal passenger areas. Their crystalline bodies need special containers that maintain specific temperature and pressure conditions." Jake flew down to the planet's surface to meet with the Viridian leaders. The crystal cities were even more beautiful up close, but he could see the fear in the people's faces. Parents held their children close and elderly Viridians sat quietly, singing soft songs of farewell to their World. Council Speaker Harthik met him at the landing site. The Viridian leader's crystal body was dim with sadness. Captain Morrison, we are grateful for your help, but we fear it may not be enough. Our people require very specific conditions to survive transport. Show me what you need, Jake said. Harthik led him to a facility where the Viridians had been building escape pods. Each pod was like a small crystal chamber, filled with gases that human instruments couldn't even identify. The pods were beautiful but complex, and Jake could see that each one took days to build. We have built 50,000 pods, Harthik explained. But we need 2 billion. Jake felt his heart sink. Even if they worked non-stop, they could never build enough pods in time. The Viridian sun was getting more unstable each day, and they had less than 10 weeks before it collapsed. What if we modify our ships? Jake suggested. Can we create the conditions your people need in our cargo holds? Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had arrived with the science team, ran calculations on her portable computer. It's possible, but it would take weeks to modify each ship, and we could only carry about 1/10 of our normal passenger capacity. Back in space, Commander Beth Williams was dealing with an even bigger problem. The hegemony fleet had arrived at the edge of the system. 50 massive warships sat in formation, led by Admiral Zor Thak, a veteran commander known for his ruthless efficiency. Human commander, came the transmission from the hegemony flagship. You have been ordered to cease this illegal intervention immediately. You have 48 hours to evacuate the system or face military action. Beth looked at her own fleet. The human ships were brave, but they were mostly transports and cargo vessels. In a fight with the hegemony fleet, they would be destroyed in minutes. Admiral Zorthek, she replied. We are engaged in a humanitarian rescue mission. We have no hostile intent toward your forces. Your intent is irrelevant. The Galactic Council has ruled on this matter. The Viridians will be allowed to die naturally. Your interference violates galactic law. Since when is saving lives against the law? Beth shot back. Since it threatens the stability of established galactic order. You have 48 hours. The transmission ended, leaving Beth with an impossible choice. She could order the human fleet to withdraw, saving the ships and crews, but abandoning the Viridians. Or she could continue the mission, knowing that it would probably end in a battle they couldn't win. She called a meeting with her senior captains. The holographic images of dozens of ship commanders appeared around the conference table. Some looked nervous, others determined, all of them waiting for her decision. You all heard the ultimatum, Beth began. I won't lie to you. If we stay, we'll probably have to fight. If we fight, many of us will die. But if we leave, 2 billion Viridians will die for certain. Captain Lisa Chun of the passenger liner Star Dream spoke first. Commander, my ship is filled with families. I have 3,000 Viridians on board, including 800 children. I can't abandon them. My cargo holds are packed with Viridian refugees, added Captain Rick Johnson of the freighter Iron Horse. These people trusted us to save them. We can't just dump them and run. One by one, the captains voiced their support for continuing the mission. A few expressed doubts about fighting the hegemony fleet, but none suggested abandoning the rescue. Operation. Then we stay, Beth decided. But we're not going to make it easy for them. We'll use the system's asteroid belt and gravitational anomalies to our advantage. If they want to stop us, they'll have to work for it. Meanwhile, on Earth, the consequences of the rescue mission were getting worse. The economic sanctions had caused widespread shortages. Hospitals were running out of advanced medical equipment that came from alien manufacturers. The space elevator in Ecuador had shut down after Zephyrian technicians withdrew their support. President Carter faced protests outside the White House. Signs read, "Save human jobs, not aliens. An Earth first, galaxy second." But other protesters carried signs saying, "Never again, and humanity helps everyone." The president received a call from the governor of the lunar colony. "Mr. President, our life support systems are failing. We need Altarian atmospheric processors, but they won't sell to us anymore. If you don't end this rescue mission, 50,000 humans on Luna could die." Carter felt the weight of impossible choices. Save the Viridians and risk human lives, or abandon the rescue and live with the guilt forever. He thought about his daughter, who was studying on Luna. He thought about the Viridian children he had seen in the news reports. "Governor, I'm sending emergency supplies from Earth. We'll find a way to fix Luna's life support without alien technology." "President, that's impossible. The technology is too advanced. Then we'll learn to build it ourselves. We got to space without alien help before. We can do it again." Back in the Viridian system, the evacuation was proceeding slowly. The modified human ships could only carry a fraction of their normal capacity, and loading the crystalline refugees took hours for each ship. Dr. Rodriguez and her team worked around the clock to improve the process, but time was running out. "We've evacuated 150 million Viridians," Jake reported to Commander Williams, "but we need to move faster. The star's instability is increasing." "I know," Beth replied, "but we're doing the best we can with what we have." That's when unexpected help arrived. The transport ship Stellar Pride appeared at the edge of the system. It wasn't human. It was Altarian. Captain Veltar, an Altarian officer, sent a message that surprised everyone. "Human vessels, this is Captain Veltar of the Altarian transport Stellar Pride. I am here to assist with the evacuation." Beth couldn't believe it. "Captain, aren't you risking your career by helping us?" "Commander Williams, I have been watching your rescue operation. Your people are showing courage and compassion that shames the rest of us. I cannot stand by and watch genocide while good people try to prevent it." More ships began to arrive. A Zephyrian medical vessel, commanded by Dr. Cathara, came to help treat injured Viridians. A small fleet of independent traders, led by Captain Vorthik of the Free Traders Union, brought supplies and additional transport capacity. "It seems not everyone in the galaxy has forgotten what it means to help others," Beth observed. "But 4. Every ship that came to help, 10 more stayed away. The major powers maintained their blockade, and Admiral Zorthik's ultimatum was still in effect. The hegemony fleet moved closer to the planet, weapons powered and ready. The rescue operation entered its final phase, with only 72 hours before the Viridian star's predicted collapse. The human fleet had saved 300 million Viridians, but 1.7 million remained on the dying world. Even with the help of the volunteer ships, it was clear that not everyone could be saved. Jake stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the Viridian sunset. He knew that in 3 days, this beautiful world would be gone forever. He thought about all the people they wouldn't be able to save, all the families that would be separated, all the art and culture that would be lost. "Captain," Danny Foster said quietly, "we've done more than anyone thought possible. We've saved more lives than any rescue mission in galactic history." "But it's not enough," Jake replied. "It's never enough when people are dying." Through the ship's communication system, he could hear the Viridian refugees singing. Their harmonic voices filled the corridors with hauntingly beautiful music. Even in their fear and sadness, they were creating art that moved the human crew to tears. Maybe that's what makes us human, Jake thought. We keep trying to save everyone, even when we know we can't. The final confrontation was approaching. Admiral Zorthik's deadline was almost up, and the hegemony fleet was moving into attack position. The human ships were loaded with refugees, making them slow and vulnerable. If the fighting started, thousands of Viridians would die along with. Their human rescuers. Beth Williams looked at the tactical display one more time. Her small fleet of rescue ships against the most powerful military force in the galaxy. The odds were hopeless, but she had made her choice. All ships maintain course and speed. Continue the evacuation. We're not backing down. Commander Beth Williams stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the hegemony fleet move into attack formation. Admiral Zorthek's 48-hour ultimatum had expired, and the massive alien warships were powering up their weapon systems. Each hegemony cruiser was 3 times the size of her largest transport, and their firepower could destroy her entire fleet in minutes. "Commander, we're receiving final evacuation reports," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. "We have 450 million Viridians aboard our ships, but 1.5 billion are still on the planet. The last transport shuttles are loading now." Beth looked at the tactical display. The dying Viridian star was becoming more unstable by the hour. Solar flares were increasing in frequency and intensity. They had maybe 30 hours before the star collapsed completely. "How long do we need to evacuate the remaining people?" she asked. "At current loading rates, about 60 hours, Park replied. "But Captain Morrison reports that the planet's surface is becoming dangerous. The star's radiation is affecting the Viridian crystal cities." Beth felt the weight of impossible mathematics. They needed more time than they had, and the hegemony fleet wasn't going to give them any time at all. "Commander Williams," came Admiral Zorthika's voice over the communication system, "your deadline has passed. Order your ships to withdraw immediately, or we will open fire." Beth took a deep breath. This was the moment that would define not just her career, but humanity's place in the galaxy. She could order her ships to retreat, saving the lives of her crews and the Viridians already aboard. Or she could stand firm and face almost certain destruction. "Admiral Zorthik," she replied, "we are engaged in a humanitarian rescue mission. These people will die if we abandon them now. Their fate was decided by the Galactic Council. You have no authority to override that decision. I have the authority of basic decency. We're not leaving." The communication channel went silent. Beth could see the hegemony ships adjusting their positions, surrounding the human fleet. The alien warships were beautiful in their own way, sleek and deadly, but they represented everything that was wrong with the galaxy. Power without compassion. Order without mercy. Captain Jake Morrison's voice came through the fleet communication system. "Commander, the last shuttle has just launched from the planet. We're loading as fast as we can, but we need more time." "You'll have it," Beth promised, though she wasn't sure how. On Earth, President Carter was watching the crisis unfold from the White House Situation Room. Real-time communications with the Viridian system took hours due to the distance, but he could see the tactical situation clearly enough. His people were about to die because he had ordered them to save aliens. "Mr. President," said Secretary of Defense Robert Kim, "we could order the fleet to withdraw. There's no shame in a tactical retreat when facing overwhelming force. There's no honor in abandoning people who need help," Carter replied. "Our people knew the risks when they volunteered for this mission. Sir, we're talking about the lives of 100,000 human crew members. If the hegemony destroys our fleet, it will be the worst military disaster in human history." Carter stared at the tactical display. Each dot represented a ship full of people, humans who had volunteered to risk their lives for strangers, and Viridians who had trusted humanity to save them. The weight of their lives pressed down on him like a physical force. "Send a message to Commander Williams," he decided. "Tell her to use her best judgment. If she thinks the situation is hopeless, she has permission to withdraw." Back in the Viridian system, Beth received the president's message. The permission to retreat should have been a relief, but it only made her decision harder. She could save her people and the Viridians already aboard, but she would have to abandon over 1 billion people to certain death. "Commander," said Captain Morrison over the fleet channel, "I'm reading massive energy buildup in the hegemony ships. They're preparing to fire." Beth looked around her bridge. Her crew was young, many of them barely out of the academy. They had families back on Earth, dreams and futures that would be cut short if the shooting started. But they were also humans, and humans didn't abandon those who needed help. "All ships, this is Commander Williams. We came here to save lives, and that's what we're going to do. Form defensive positions around the transport vessels. Protect the refugees at all costs." The human fleet began to move. The few military vessels they had positioned themselves between the hegemony ships and the loaded transports. Cargo vessels and passenger liners moved to the center of the formation, their holds packed with crystalline refugees. Admiral Zorthic's voice echoed across the system. "Final warning, humans. Withdraw now or face the consequences." Beth opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Commander Williams to all human vessels. We face a choice that will define who we are as a species. We can run and save ourselves, or we can stand and save others. I know what choice I'm making." One by one, the human captains responded. "Standing firm," said Captain Shun of the Star Dream. "We're with you, Commander," added Captain Johnson of the Iron Horse. Even the civilian cargo haulers and passenger liners confirmed their positions. The hegemony fleet moved closer. Beth could see the weapon ports opening on the alien ships. In a few minutes, those weapons would fire, and many of her people would die. But they would die doing the right thing. That's when something unexpected happened. The Viridian refugees aboard the human ships began to sing dot. It started as a low harmonic sound, barely audible through the ship's systems, but it grew stronger as more voices joined in. The crystal beings throughout the fleet began to harmonize, creating a song that was both beautiful and heartbreaking. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, monitoring the phenomenon from her research ship, made a startling discovery. "Commander, the Viridian song is broadcasting on all frequencies. It's not just music. It's sharing their emotions and memories." The harmonic resonance spread beyond the human fleet. Every ship in the system, including the hegemony vessels, began receiving the Viridian broadcast. For the first time, the various alien species could feel what the Viridians were feeling. Their fear, their hope, their gratitude to the humans who had come to save them. The song told the story of the Viridian people, millions of years of peaceful existence, creating art and music and beauty, the joy of their children, the wisdom of their elders, the bonds of family and community that connected them all. It showed their love for their dying world and their desperate hope for a future among the stars. Admiral Zorthic's ship was silent for long minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice was different, less certain, more troubled. "Human Commander, what is this phenomenon?" "It's the truth, Admiral," Beth replied. "It's the story of the people you've ordered me to abandon. They're not just statistics or political problems. They're living beings with hopes and dreams and families." The hegemony fleet held position, weapons still charged but not firing. Beth could see other ships throughout the system, vessels from various species that had come to watch the confrontation. Some were beginning to move closer, their crews apparently affected by the Viridian song. Captain Valtar's Altarian transport moved to join the human formation. "Commander Williams, the Stellar Pride stands with you." More ships began to join them. A Zephyrian medical vessel, several independent freighters, even a small Centauri patrol ship. The Viridian song was having an effect that no amount of diplomatic pressure or military threats had achieved. It was making the galaxy's species actually feel empathy for the dying people. But Admiral Zorthek was a professional soldier, and he had his orders. All ships maintain formation. Prepare to fire on my command. Beth watched the tactical display as the hegemony weapons locked onto her vessels. This was it, the moment when humanity's idealism would meet the galaxy's harsh reality. She thought about her daughter back on Earth, about the future she wanted to build for her. "Admiral," she said, opening a final communication channel, "before you fire, I want you to know something. We're not here because we're naive or stupid. We're here because we believe that the strong should protect the weak. We believe that when someone needs help, you help them. That's what makes us human. Your beliefs are admirable, Commander, but they are also dangerous. The galaxy has rules for a reason." 5 years had passed since the Viridian rescue, and the galaxy was a very different place. Captain Jake Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, stood on the observation deck of the space station, New Harmony, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the massive facility. What had started as a desperate rescue mission had become something much larger. The station orbited Kepler 186f, a world that had been transformed into the first truly integrated human Viridian colony. Below, crystal cities rose alongside human architecture, creating a unique blend of technologies and cultures. The sight still amazed Jake, even after all these years. "Admiral Morrison," came a familiar harmonic voice. Council Speaker Harthick approached, his crystalline form now more vibrant than it had been during the dark days of the evacuation. "The morning reports are ready for your review." Jake smiled. The Viridian leader had become not just an ally, but a close friend. Working together had taught both species things they never could have learned alone. "How are the new arrivals settling in?" Jake asked. "Very well. The refugees from the Proxima incident are adapting quickly to our harmonic resonance therapy. Dr. Rodriguez believes they will make a full recovery within weeks." The Proxima incident had been the latest in a series of crises that had brought other species to seek help from the Human-Viridian Alliance. A solar storm had damaged the life support systems on 3 Centauri colonies, leaving 50,000 people in danger. When the Galactic Council debated what to do, the Alliance had simply acted, sending rescue ships immediately. It had become a pattern. When disaster struck, when people needed help, the major galactic powers would hold meetings and debates while the Alliance sent aid. The contrast was becoming harder for the galaxy to ignore. Jake walked through the station's corridors, observing the daily miracle of interspecies cooperation. Human children played games with young Viridians, learning to communicate through harmonic frequencies. Viridian artists work with human engineers to create technologies that neither species could have developed alone. In the research section, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was working on her latest project. She had become the galaxy's leading expert on Viridian technology, but more importantly, she had learned to think like they did. "Elena, how's the quantum computer project coming?" Jake asked. "Better than I hoped," she replied, excitement clear in her voice. "The Viridian harmonic processors can solve equations that would take our best computers centuries. We're on the verge of breakthroughs in everything from medicine to faster-than-light travel. And they're sharing all of this freely? That's what makes them special, Jake. They don't think in terms of patents or trade secrets. Knowledge belongs to everyone. It's a completely different way of thinking about progress." The success of the Alliance colonies had not gone unnoticed. Human worlds that had initially opposed the Viridian rescue were now requesting Viridian settlers. The crystal beings' harmonic technology had solved countless engineering problems, while their emotional resonance abilities had revolutionized psychology and medicine. But the real change was deeper than technology. The Viridians had taught humanity something about empathy and cooperation that was transforming human society. Crime rates had dropped dramatically on integrated worlds. Depression and anxiety were becoming rare. People were simply happier when they could feel each other's emotions through Viridian. Harmonic resonance, Jake's communication device, chimed with an incoming message from Earth. President Carter, now in his second term, appeared on the screen, looking tired but satisfied. "Jake, I've got news from the Galactic Council meeting. The hegemony has officially requested humanitarian assistance protocols." Jake was surprised. The hegemony had been one of the Alliance's harshest critics, calling human Viridian cooperation dangerous idealism and galactic destabilization. "What kind of assistance?" Jake asked. "Their outer colonies are facing a plague that their medical technology can't cure. They've exhausted all traditional treatments. They want to know if our Viridian partners might be able to help." It was ironic. The same species that had nearly destroyed the human rescue fleet was now asking for help from the people they had tried to stop. But Jake knew what the answer would be. "Send a medical team immediately," he said. "The harmony can be therein." 6 days. "Jake, are you sure? The hegemony has made life difficult for us for years. Maybe it's time they learned about consequences." Jake thought about Commander Williams, who had died 2 years earlier in another rescue mission. She had never lived to see how her courage at the Viridian system had changed the galaxy. But her words still guided Alliance policy. "We help people because it's right, not because they deserve it. Mr. President, if we start choosing who deserves help based on how they've treated us, we become just like the old Galactic Council. We help because they need help." Within days, Alliance medical ships were racing toward hegemony space. The mission was led by Dr. Kira Walsh, a human physician who had learned Viridian harmonic healing techniques. Her team included both human doctors and Viridian healers working together. The results were dramatic. The plague that had killed thousands of hegemony colonists was cured within weeks using a combination of human medicine and Viridian harmonic therapy. More importantly, the emotional resonance treatment helped the survivors deal with their trauma and grief. Admiral Zorthok, the same hegemony commander who had faced down the human fleet 5 years earlier, met personally with Dr. Walsh. Proud military officer struggled to find words for what he was feeling. "Dr. Walsh, my people owe you a debt we can never repay. But I must ask, why did you help us?" "We have not been friends to humanity." Dr. Walsh smiled. "Admiral, we helped you because people were sick and we could make them better. It's really that simple." The hegemony officer was quiet for a long moment. "Perhaps it is time for my people to learn this simplicity." The plague rescue marked a turning point in galactic politics. Other species began to question why they maintained the old system of bureaucratic indifference when the Alliance consistently provided effective aid. The Altarian Empire quietly began negotiations to join the humanitarian protocols. The Zephyrian Collective announced new policies prioritizing disaster relief. Back at New Harmony Station, Jake received a visit from an unexpected guest. Senator Ryan Clark, the same man who had opposed the Viridian rescue 5 years earlier, arrived with a delegation from Mars. "Admiral Morrison," Clark said, looking somewhat embarrassed, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong about the rescue mission." "You were protecting human interests," Jake replied diplomatically. "That was your job." "No, I was protecting what I thought were human interests. I didn't understand that helping others was the greatest service we could do for humanity. Look around you. This station represents the future of our species." Clark gestured at the bustling corridors, where humans and Viridians worked side by side, where children of different species played together, where art and science flourished in ways neither species could have achieved alone. "Mars Colony wants to formally join the Alliance," Clark announced. "We want Viridian settlers, and we want to contribute ships and resources to your humanitarian missions." It was a pattern repeating across human space. Colonies that had initially resisted the alliance were now eager to join. The economic benefits were obvious. Alliance worlds were more prosperous, more innovative, and more stable than traditional human colonies. But the social benefits were even more important. People were discovering that diversity made them stronger, not weaker. The Galactic Council tried to adapt to the new reality. They established their own humanitarian aid programs, copying Alliance protocols and procedures. But they lacked the emotional connection that made Alliance efforts so effective. Their aid was efficient, but cold. Professional but distant. Jake stood on the observation deck again, watching the sunset over Kepler 186f. In the distance, he could see human and Viridian children playing in the crystal gardens, their laughter and harmonic songs mixing in the evening air. It was a sound that filled him with hope for the future. Council. Speaker Harthik joined him at the viewport. Admiral, do you ever regret the choice your species made? Jake thought about the question seriously. Humanity had paid a price for their idealism. They had endured economic hardship, political isolation, and military threats. Many humans had died in rescue missions over the years. The path they had chosen was not easy or safe. No, he said finally. We made the right choice. We chose to be the species that helps others, even when it's hard. We chose to be the species that stands up when everyone else sits down. And what do you see in the future? Jake looked at the thriving colony below, at the ships from dozens of species docked at the station, at the children who would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation was normal and helping others was expected. I see a galaxy where no one gets left behind, he said. I see a galaxy where not on our time becomes the standard response to suffering and injustice. I see the future that Commander Williams and all the others died to create. The harmonic resonance from the Viridian settlements below reached the station, carrying emotions of gratitude, hope, and joy. It was joined by human voices singing old Earth songs and by the communications of other species who had learned that music could be a universal language. As the HFY.
The massive alien warship hung in space like a dark cloud. Its jagged edges and strange glowing ports made it look nothing like the smooth human ships nearby. Commander Zakthar stood on the command deck of his vessel, the inevitable dominance. 6 thin arms crossed over his chitinous chest as he stared at the blue-green planet on the main screen. These humans are testing my patience, Zakthar said. His voice was like stones grinding together. The other aliens on the bridge kept their distance. They knew the commander's reputation for sudden violence when annoyed. They have asked for more time to consider our demands, said First Officer Grell. His antennae twitched nervously. For the 3rd time, Zikthar's compound eyes narrowed. Each of his 6 eyes could move independently, but now they all focused on the image of Earth. They are not considering. They are stalling. The hegemony does not tolerate disrespect. The galactic hegemony had arrived in Earth's solar system 3 days ago. Their demands were simple. Earth would join the hegemony as a slave world, or they would face consequences. The humans had responded by asking for time to discuss the terms. Zakthar now realized this was just a trick. On the Earth Defense Fleet, Flagship Horizon, Captain Susan Miller rubbed her tired eyes. She hadn't slept more than 4 hours since the aliens arrived. Any response to our latest message? She asked. Communications Officer Diane Rodriguez shook her head. Nothing yet, Captain, but they're still watching us. All their weapons systems remain active. Susan nodded and looked around the bridge. Her crew was tired but focused. Joe Barnes at Tactical kept his eyes on the weapon readouts. Linda Hayes, their xenobiologist, was studying the limited scans they had of the alien biology. What do we know about them, Linda? Susan asked. Linda looked up from her screen. Not much more than yesterday. Insectoid features, exoskeleton, 6 limbs. Their atmosphere seems to have more methane than ours. Based on their communications, they have a strict hierarchy and expect immediate obedience. Which explains why they're getting annoyed with us. Susan said. She walked to the large window and looked at the alien ship. It was at least 5 times larger than the horizon. "Captain," called Andy Edwards from the sensor station, "I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the alien vessel." Susan turned quickly. "Weapons?" "I don't think so," Andy said, frowning at his screen. "It's different from their weapon signatures. More biological." The main screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The alien commander's face filled the screen. Zikathar looked even angrier than during their previous conversations, if that was possible for an insect face to show. "Captain Miller," the alien said in its harsh, translated voice, "your time for consideration has ended. You have proven that humans cannot be trusted to join the hegemony peacefully." Susan stepped forward. "Commander Zikathar, we simply need more time to—" "Silence!" the alien commander barked. "You will learn the price of defying the hegemony. We will not destroy your planet, as you have resources we need, but you will no longer command yourselves." The screen went dark. Susan turned to Joe Barnes. "Battle stations, all hands prepare for—" "Captain," Andy interrupted. "They've launched something. Small object, pod-sized, heading straight for us." "Evasive maneuvers," Susan ordered. The helmsman, Pete Wilson, tried to move the large ship, but the pod was too fast. It struck the outer hull near Cargo Bay 3. "Impact in section C12, Joe reported. "No explosion. The pod. It seems to have attached itself to our hull." Susan hit the shipwide comm button. "Security team to section C12, full containment protocols." Security Chief Frank Martinez led his team through the corridors at a run. All 6 officers wore the new hazard suits designed by Dr. Olivia Wright. The suits would protect against known alien pathogens and weapons. "Remember," Frank told his team as they approached the cargo section, "we have no idea what's in that. Pod could be a bomb, could be troops, could be a virus. Take no chances." Officer Caitlin Moore nodded, checking her pulse rifle. "Ready, Chief?" They reached the sealed doors to Cargo Bay 3. Through the small window they could see the alien pod. It had melted through the outer hull and now sat on the metal floor, steaming slightly. It was oval-shaped and about the size of a small refrigerator. "Dr. Wright, are you seeing this?" Frank asked into his comm. In the science lab, Dr. Olivia Wright and her assistant Sam Green watched the security team's video feed. "We see it, Chief. Readings show the pod's surface. Temperature is cooling rapidly. No radiation, no toxic gas detected so far." "We're going in," Frank said. He nodded to his team and they entered the cargo bay in formation, weapons ready. On the command deck, Susan and her officers watched through the security team's cameras. Everyone held their breath as Frank approached the alien pod. "It's moving," Frank reported. The surface of the pod was shifting, sections of it becoming transparent. On the alien ship, Commander Zikathar watched the humans through remote sensors. "The beast has arrived," he said, his voice filled with cruel satisfaction. "Soon they will understand true terror." Science Officer Vexilor stood beside him. "The beast has never failed us, Commander. Within hours, the humans will be in such psychological distress that they will beg to surrender." The pod on the horizon suddenly split open. A thick mist poured out, briefly obscuring the security team's cameras. Frank and his officers took a step back, weapons aimed at the opening. "I see movement," Frank reported, his voice tense. The mist cleared. Inside the pod, something small shifted in a nest of strange, glowing fibers. The security team moved closer, cautiously. "What is that?" Caitlin asked, lowering her weapon slightly. A small creature emerged from the fibers. It was about the size of a house cat, with soft blue-gray fur covering its round body. 6 large eyes blinked open, each a different color of the rainbow. It had 4 tiny paws and a pair of fluffy ears that twitched as it looked around the cargo bay. When it saw the humans, it made a soft chirping sound. Captain," Frank said, confusion clear in his voice. "I think you need to see this." On the bridge, everyone stared at the screen in disbelief. "That's their weapon?" Joe asked. "It looks like a stuffed toy." The creature chirped again and took a tentative step toward Frank. It tilted its head to one side, studying him with curious eyes. "Dr. Hayes?" Susan called to the xenobiologist. Any ideas? Linda was already scanning the creature. It's definitely alive. Warm-blooded, despite coming from an insectoid species. I'm not detecting any obvious weapons or toxic components, but I need more data. The creature sat down and began to groom its fur with a tiny pink tongue. In the alien ship, Commander Zikthar watched the humans' reactions with growing anticipation. How long until the beast's effect begins? He asked. The empathic field is already active, Vexler replied. The humans should be experiencing the first stages of terror now. On the horizon, Caitlin had knelt down to get a better look at the creature. It hopped toward her with another cheerful chirp. Chief, she said to Frank, it's kind of cute. Frank frowned. Stay back more, we don't know what it can do. But the creature had reached Caitlin. It looked up at her with its rainbow eyes and made a purring sound. Then, to everyone's surprise, it rubbed its head against her leg, just like a cat might do. Oh my God, Caitlin said softly. It's adorable. Dr. Olivia Wright hurried down the corridor toward the quarantine lab. Her assistant Sam Green struggled to keep up with her quick pace. I don't understand, Sam said. If this is a weapon, what does it do? Bite? Spray poison? That's what we need to find out, Olivia replied. She pushed through the lab doors where Security Chief Frank Martinez waited with the containment unit. Inside the clear box, the blue-gray furry creature sat calmly, watching them with its 6 rainbow-colored eyes. Has it done anything dangerous? Olivia asked, putting on gloves. Frank shook his head. Nothing. Officer Moore wanted to adopt it. He didn't sound happy. I had to order her to stop petting it. Olivia studied the creature. It was undeniably cute with its round body, tiny paws, and those huge expressive eyes. When it noticed her attention, it moved to the front of the box and placed one paw against the clear wall. Then it made a chirping sound that somehow seemed hopeful. Let's run some tests, she said, fighting the strange urge to open the box and hold the little thing. On the bridge of the horizon, Captain Susan Miller received another transmission from the alien ship. Commander Zakathar's insect face filled the screen. Captain Miller, the alien said, voice harsh and clicking. How are you enjoying our gift? Susan kept her face neutral. Commander Zakathar, we're still evaluating the creature you sent us. The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly. Yes, the beast. Tell me, are your crew members experiencing great distress? Are they begging for mercy yet? Susan frowned. I'm not sure what you mean. The terror, Zikthar snapped. The mental breakdown. The beast's empathic field should be reducing your strongest warriors to weeping larvae by now. Susan glanced at Joe Barnes, who raised an eyebrow. I see, she said carefully. Would you mind holding for just a moment, Commander? Without waiting for an answer, she muted the transmission. Get me Dr. Wright now. In the lab, Olivia and Sam had just completed their first round of scans when the call came through. Doctor, what can you tell me about this creature? Susan asked. The alien commander seems to think it should be causing terror and mental breakdowns. Olivia looked at her results. That's strange, Captain. Our scans show it's producing some kind of neurological field, but it's not harmful. If anything, it seems to produce effects similar to oxytocin and serotonin in human brains, feelings of contentment and bonding. So it's making us happy? Susan asked. Essentially, yes. Everyone who's been near it reports feelings of warmth and well-being. Officer Moore is practically in love with it. Susan thought for a moment. Keep studying it. I need to speak with our alien friends. She switched back to the transmission where Commander Zakathar was waiting, his compound eyes twitching with impatience. Commander, Susan said, could you tell me more about this beast and its expected effects? Zakathar seemed pleased by the question. The beast is our most powerful psychological weapon. Its empathic field targets the fear center in sentient brains, amplifying terror until the victim cannot function. Entire civilizations have surrendered rather than spend another hour in its presence. He leaned closer to the screen. How many of your crew have taken their own lives so far? Susan controlled her expression. None, actually. Our species appears to be responding differently. On the alien ship, Science Officer Vexilor approached the commander with obvious anxiety. Commander, our sensors indicate the human's brain activity is not matching expected patterns. There are no stress hormones, no panic responses. Zikthar hissed in anger. Impossible. The beast has broken the will of 17 species. Back in the lab, Sam was playing with the creature. He had convinced Olivia to let it out of the containment box once their tests showed it carried no harmful bacteria or viruses. The little animal sat on the exam table, purring as Sam scratched behind its ears. I think it likes me, Sam said with a smile. Olivia nodded, reviewing her latest scans. It's producing stronger empathic fields now that it's in direct contact with you. But instead of fear, you're experiencing increased happiness? Definitely, Sam confirmed. It's like holding a puppy and eating chocolate at the same time. The creature made a trilling sound and nuzzled against Sam's hand. When Olivia approached, it looked up at her with its rainbow eyes and chirped hopefully. I think it wants you to pet it too, Sam said. Olivia hesitated, then stroked the creature's soft fur. A warm feeling spread through her chest. Oh, she said softly. That's nice. The lab door opened and Linda Hayes, the xenobiologist, entered. She stopped when she saw the creature free on the table. Is that safe? It's perfectly harmless, Olivia said, still petting the creature. In fact, it seems to be having the opposite effect of what the aliens intended. Linda approached cautiously. What do you mean? The aliens call it the beast. It's supposed to cause terror and psychological breakdown through its empathic field. But in humans, it seems to trigger feelings of affection and well-being instead. The creature looked at Linda and made an inviting chirp. Despite herself, Linda smiled. May I? She asked, reaching out slowly. As soon as she touched the soft fur, her smile widened. Oh, it's like finding something you've been missing your whole life. On the bridge, Captain Susan Miller made a decision. Commander Zikthar, perhaps you should see how your beast is affecting us. She nodded to Diane at Communications, who transferred the video feed from the lab to the transmission. The alien commander watched in disbelief as 3 humans petted and played with the beast. The creature was chirping happily, rolling onto its back as Sam rubbed its belly. This is impossible, Zikthar sputtered. The beast induces madness, terror, despair. Not in humans, apparently, Susan said. We find it quite charming. Ziktar's mandibles clicked rapidly in what Susan guessed was extreme agitation. What trick is this? Have you neutralized its empathic field? No trick, Commander. It seems our brains simply interpret the field differently than other species you've encountered. In the lab, the creature had climbed onto Linda's shoulder and was nuzzling her neck, making her laugh. It tickles. I think we need to give it a name. How about Fluffy? Sam suggested. Fluffy the Beast? Olivia considered it. I like it. The creature, now Fluffy, chirped as if in approval. On the alien ship, Commander Zikthar turned to his science officer in rage. Explain this failure. Vexilor's antennae drooped in submission. I cannot, Commander. Perhaps human brain structure is uniquely unsuited to the beast's influence? We have never deployed it against this species before. You told me it would work, Zikthar hissed, raising one of his 6 arms threateningly. All simulations indicated success, Vexilor insisted, backing away. This is unprecedented. Captain Susan Miller watched the aliens argue on her screen. She could not understand their native language, but the conflict was obvious. Finally, Zikthar turned back to the transmission. This is not over, human. He growled. If the beast has failed, we have other methods. The transmission cut off abruptly. Susan sighed and turned to Joe Barnes. Keep all weapon systems ready. I don't think the commander takes disappointment well. Yes, Captain, Joe replied. Should we continue studying the creature? Susan nodded. Absolutely. If their weapon makes us happy instead of afraid, I want to know why. It might give us an advantage. In the lab, Fluffy had fallen asleep on Linda's lap. The xenobiologist stroked its fur gently as Olivia took more readings. Its brain activity changes when it sleeps, Olivia noted. The empathic field gets stronger, not weaker. Sam yawned. Is that why I suddenly feel so relaxed? Linda nodded, feeling drowsy herself. I think it's bonding with us. Fluffy purred in its sleep, 6 tiny paws twitching as it dreamed. Whatever the aliens had intended, the humans had gained not a weapon of terror, but a source of comfort. And in the face of an alien invasion, that might be exactly what they needed. Commander Zakthar paced the bridge of the inevitable dominance, his 6 legs clicking against the metal floor. The crew kept their distance. They had seen the commander break a subordinate's exoskeleton for smaller failures than this. 3 cycles, Zakthar hissed. 3 cycles and the humans show no signs of mental breakdown. He stopped in front of Science Officer Vexler. Explain. Vexler's antennae drooped with anxiety. We have been analyzing the data, Commander. It appears the human brain processes the beast's empathic field through different neural pathways than other species we have encountered. And this means? Zakthar demanded. Instead of triggering fear responses, it seems to activate their nurturing instincts. It makes them feel protective. Happy, even. Zakthar's mandibles clicked furiously. You mean we gave the humans a pet? Vexler's forearms gestured nervously. Essentially, yes. The commander turned to the view screen showing the Earth vessel. Prepare the pulse cannons. If we cannot break their minds, we will break their ship. On the horizon, Captain Susan Miller called an emergency meeting. Around the conference table sat her senior officers, Joe Barnes from Tactical, Linda Hayes, the xenobiologist, Dr. Olivia Wright, Security Chief Frank Martinez, and Communications Officer Diane Rodriguez. In the center of the table, Fluffy sat grooming its blue-gray fur, occasionally looking up with its rainbow eyes to chirp at whoever was speaking. Dr. Wright, what have you learned? Susan asked. Olivia handed out tablets with her findings. The creature Fluffy produces an empathic field that directly affects brain chemistry. In most species, it seems this triggers extreme fear responses, but in humans, it stimulates our oxytocin and serotonin production. Making us feel good, Joe said, reaching over to scratch Fluffy behind the ears. The creature purred in response. More than that, Linda added. It creates feelings of bonding and protectiveness, the same chemicals released when parents look at their children or when we interact with our pets. Basically, we're hardwired to find Fluffy adorable. Frank frowned. So this is some kind of psychological warfare that backfired. The aliens expected us to be terrified, but instead we just want to cuddle it. Exactly, Olivia confirmed. And there's more. Fluffy is intelligent, roughly on par with a smart dog or a young child. It's learning our behaviors rapidly. As if, to demonstrate, Fluffy stood up on its hind legs and made a saluting gesture with its front paw, mimicking the motion Frank often made. Several people around the table laughed. The most interesting finding, Linda continued, is that Fluffy seems to be adapting its empathic field to us. It's becoming more attuned to human brain patterns. The bonding effect is getting stronger. Susan nodded thoughtfully. So what does this mean for us strategically? 2 things, Olivia said. First, the aliens clearly don't understand human psychology as well as they thought. That's an advantage for us. Second, Fluffy might be more than just a failed weapon. It could be a communication bridge. Susan raised an eyebrow. How so? Fluffy can sense our emotions through its empathic abilities. And it can project emotions back. If we could find a way to direct this, to focus it. The meeting was interrupted by a sudden alarm. Joe's tablet beeped with an urgent notification. Captain, the alien vessel is charging weapons. Susan stood. Quickly. Everyone to battle stations. Doctor, get Fluffy somewhere safe. As the crew dispersed, Olivia scooped up Fluffy and hurried toward the lab. The creature seemed to sense the tension, its ears flattening against its head and its chirps becoming more urgent. It's okay, Olivia told it as they rushed through. The corridors. You'll be safe. But Fluffy wasn't worried for itself. As they reached the lab, the creature squirmed out of Olivia's arms and ran to her computer terminal. It stood on its hind legs and pointed at the screen, chirping insistently. "What is it?" Olivia asked, confused. Then she noticed that Fluffy was pointing specifically at the communication icon. "You want to send a message?" Fluffy nodded, its round head an unmistakably human gesture it had learned. Olivia hesitated, then activated the terminal. "To whom?" The creature made a series of clicks and hisses, a crude imitation of the alien commander's speech. On the bridge, Captain Susan Miller watched as the alien vessel's weapon ports began to glow. "Shields at maximum," she ordered. "Prepare evasive maneuvers." "Captain," Diane called from communications. "Dr. Wright is requesting an open channel to the alien ship. She says it's urgent." Susan frowned. "Put her through." Olivia's face appeared on the small screen at Susan's chair. "Captain, this might sound crazy, but Fluffy wants to communicate with Commander Zakthar." "Doctor, we're about to be under attack." "I know, but Fluffy is very insistent. I think it might be able to reach them in a way we can't." Susan looked at the main view screen where the alien ship loomed. Their diplomatic efforts had failed. What did they have to lose? "Open a channel, Diane." On the alien ship, Commander Zakthar was about to give the order to fire when his communications officer interrupted. "Commander, the human vessel is hailing us." "Ignore them," Zakthar snapped. "Sir, our sensors indicate the beast is part of the transmission." Zakthar paused. "Show me." The view screen activated, showing Captain Miller on the human bridge. "Commander Zakthar," she said. "Before you attack, someone wants to speak with you." The image shifted to a laboratory, where the beast sat on a desk next to a human female. Zakthar's compound eyes widened in surprise. The beast was supposed to be causing chaos among the humans, not sitting calmly in their communication center. Then something even more unexpected happened. The beast looked directly at the camera and began producing a series of clicks and hisses, a crude approximation of the hegemony language. Science Officer Vexler gasped. "Commander, it's attempting to communicate in our native tongue." "Impossible," Zakthar said, but he couldn't deny what he was seeing. "What is it saying?" Vexelor listened carefully. "It's difficult to interpret, but I believe it's saying, 'No harm and friendship.'" In the lab aboard the Horizon, Olivia watched in amazement as Fluffy continued its strange communication. The creature's empathic field had intensified, filling the room with a sense of calm and hope. "It's trying to prevent the attack," Olivia realized. She turned to the camera. "Captain, I think Fluffy is attempting to negotiate peace." On the bridge, Susan leaned forward in her chair. "Can it succeed?" "I don't know, but its empathic abilities are stronger than we realized. It might be able to influence the aliens' emotions, just as it influences ours, but in the opposite direction, making them feel calm instead of aggressive." On the alien ship, Commander Zakthar felt a strange sensation creeping through his mind. The beast's gaze seemed to bore into him through the view screen, and with it came unfamiliar feelings: hesitation, curiosity, and something almost like warmth. "What trickery is this?" he demanded, but his voice lacked its usual harshness. "No, trick," Captain Miller replied. "Just a different kind of communication. Commander, what you sent as a weapon we see as a friend. Perhaps there's a lesson in that." Zakthar looked at the beast, at Fluffy, and for the first time, he saw it not as a tool of terror, but as a living creature, one that had adapted to its new environment in unexpected ways. Something in the commander's rigid thinking began to soften. "Stand down weapons," he ordered, surprising his crew. "I wish to learn more about this development." A day later, Captain Susan Miller stood nervously in the Horizon's main docking bay. Beside her were Dr. Olivia Wright, Linda Hayes, and Security Chief Frank Martinez. Frank's team lined the walls, weapons visible but not raised. "Are you sure about this?" Frank asked quietly. Susan nodded. We need to take this chance. Fluffy has given us an opening we didn't have before. In her arms, Fluffy sat calmly, its 6 rainbow eyes watching the large airlock door. The creature had been strangely focused all morning, as if it understood the importance of what was about to happen. The airlock indicators changed from red to green. Air hissed as pressure equalized, and the massive doors slowly slid open. Commander Zakthar stood on the other side. He was taller than the humans had realized from the video communications, nearly 7 feet of armored exoskeleton and sharp angles. Behind him stood Science Officer Vexilor and 2 heavily armed guards. Susan stepped forward. Commander Zakthar, welcome aboard the Horizon. The alien commander's compound eyes shifted rapidly, taking in the human delegation and the armed security personnel. When his gaze landed on Fluffy, his mandibles clicked once. Captain Miller, he said, his harsh voice translated by a small device at his throat. I have come to observe this unexpected situation personally. Fluffy chirped and squirmed in Susan's arms. She carefully set the creature down on the floor. Everyone watched as Fluffy approached the alien commander without fear. Zakthar stiffened. His guards raised their weapons slightly. It's okay, Olivia said quickly. Fluffy is just trying to establish contact. The furry creature stopped a few feet from Zakthar and sat back on its hind legs. Then it made that same saluting gesture it had learned from Frank, followed by a series of clicks and chirps that approximated the alien language. Vexilor leaned toward his commander. Remarkable mimicry. And it's attempting our formal greeting. Zakthar didn't move. The beast was never designed to communicate. It was created only to inspire fear. Yet here we are, Susan said. Commander, would you and your science officer like to join us in our conference room? Dr. Wright has prepared a presentation on our findings. The aliens followed the human delegation through the corridors of the Horizon. Crew members stopped and stared as the insectoid visitors passed. Fluffy trotted alongside the group, occasionally, looking back as if making sure everyone was following. In the conference room, Olivia displayed her research on the large screen. As you can see, the empathic field affects these areas of the human brain, she explained, pointing to the colorful brain scan. In humans, these are associated with bonding and positive emotions. Vexilor moved closer to the screen, fascinated. In most species we've encountered, those same pathways trigger fear responses. He turned to his commander. This could explain the failure of the beast as a weapon against humans. Zakthar remained stiff and formal. A curious anomaly, but irrelevant. The hegemony still requires Earth submission. Susan was about to respond when Fluffy suddenly jumped onto the conference table. The creature walked to the center and sat down, looking directly at Zakthar. Then something strange happened. Fluffy's fur began to glow softly, pulsing with gentle waves of blue light. The 6 rainbow eyes grew brighter, and the empathic field in the room intensified dramatically. Linda gasped. It's never done this before. Everyone in the room felt the change. For the humans, it was like a wave of warmth and comfort, stronger than anything they had experienced from Fluffy previously. But the aliens reacted differently. Zakthar took a step back, his rigid posture faltering. Vexilor grabbed the edge of the table, his antennae vibrating rapidly. What is happening? The commander demanded, but his harsh voice had softened. I think Fluffy is trying to communicate directly, Olivia said quietly, through emotions rather than words. The glowing creature turned slowly in a circle, making eye contact with each person, human and alien, in the room. With each gaze, images and feelings flowed into their minds. Stars seen from unfamiliar worlds, the wonder of discovering new life, the joy of understanding, the peace of cooperation. Vexilor sank into a chair. Impossible. The beast was never given these abilities. Maybe it always had them, Linda suggested, but was never allowed to use them. Zakthar stood transfixed, his compound eyes reflecting the blue glow from Fluffy's fur. For the first time, in his long military career, the commander felt something beyond ambition and conquest. a glimpse of what it might be like to explore rather than subjugate. Fluffy chirped softly and the glow faded. The creature looked tired but satisfied. "What did you do to me?" Zakthar asked, his voice unusually quiet. Susan stepped forward. "I think Fluffy showed you another way of seeing us. Not as enemies or subjects, but as potential allies." The commander's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed this new perspective. The hegemony does not make allies. It makes conquests. "Perhaps that's why you've never encountered a species like ours before," Susan suggested. "One that turns your weapons of fear into bridges of understanding." Vexillor turned to his commander. "Sir, this development merits further study. The beast, Fluffy, has evolved capabilities beyond its original design. This could be valuable to the hegemony." Zakthar was silent for a long moment. Then he made a gesture that the humans didn't recognize, a complex movement of all 6 arms that seemed almost ceremonial. "The High Council must be informed," he finally said. "We will postpone any military action while we investigate this phenomenon." Susan felt a surge of hope. "We welcome scientific exchange, Commander. Perhaps we could start by learning more about Fluffy's species and origins." Across the table, Fluffy chirped happily, as if understanding that its intervention had created a break in the tension. The creature hopped down from the table and, to everyone's surprise, walked directly to Commander Zakthar. The alien commander looked down at the furry creature that his people had engineered as a weapon of terror. Fluffy looked up at him with those 6 rainbow eyes, then did something that no one expected. It gently placed one tiny paw against Zakthar's armored leg. The room went silent. The security team tensed, expecting the commander to react violently. Instead, Zakthar slowly, very slowly lowered one of his 6 arms. With a delicacy that seemed impossible for his armored limbs, he touched the top of Fluffy's head with a single finger. Fluffy purred. Vexillor's antennae twitched in shock. "Commander?" Zakthar quickly withdrew his hand. "For scientific observation," he said stiffly. But something had changed in his demeanor. Susan and Olivia exchanged looks. The captain had to hide a smile. Even an alien commander wasn't immune to Fluffy's charm. "Perhaps," Susan suggested, "we could share a meal while discussing our next steps. We've prepared food suitable for your biology." Zakthar straightened his posture. "Acceptable. And I wish your scientists to explain more about human neural responses." As the unusual delegation moved toward the dining area, Fluffy trotted between, humans and aliens occasionally chirping as if adding to the conversation. What had begun as an act of war had somehow transformed into the first tentative steps toward peace. A week had passed since the first meeting between humans and the hegemony aliens. The inevitable dominance remained in orbit near the horizon, but no weapons had been charged. Instead, shuttles moved back and forth between the ships as scientists from both species shared information. In the main laboratory of the horizon, Dr. Olivia Wright worked alongside Science Officer Vexillor. Despite their completely different biologies, the two had developed an efficient working relationship. Both were fascinated by Fluffy, who sat on a special cushion between their workstations. "The genetic modifications are remarkable," Vexillor said, his forearms moving across multiple screens. "The beast, I mean Fluffy, was designed to target fear responses in most sentient species." Olivia nodded. "But whoever created it didn't account for human brain structure. Instead of fear, we experience affection and bonding." Fluffy chirped happily, its 6 rainbow eyes following their conversation. Over the past week, the creature had continued to learn and adapt. It now understood dozens of human words and could make simple requests using a tablet that Sam Green had programmed for it. Vexillor's antennae twitched thoughtfully. What is most interesting is how its abilities have expanded beyond its original design. The empathic projection it demonstrated was never part of its programming. Maybe it was always capable of more than being a weapon, Olivia suggested. It just needed the right environment to develop. Fluffy picked up its tablet and tapped a few symbols. A synthesized voice said, "Friend, happy, together." Both scientists looked at the small creature with surprise. It was the most complex statement Fluffy had made yet. On the bridge, Captain Susan Miller met with Commander Zekthar. The alien leader had changed subtly over the past week. He still stood rigid and formal, but there was less hostility in his posture. "The High Council has reviewed our reports," Zekthar said. "They are intrigued by the unique properties of human neural pathways." Susan nodded carefully. "And have they reconsidered their demand for Earth's surrender?" Zekthar's mandibles clicked once. "The situation has become more complex. Your species represents something we have not encountered before. The Council wishes to study humans further before making any final decisions." It wasn't a promise of peace, but it was better than imminent attack. Susan felt cautiously optimistic. "There is another matter," Zekthar continued. "The beast, the creature you call Fluffy, has demonstrated abilities beyond its design parameters. The Council is concerned." Susan frowned. "Concerned how?" "They fear it may be evolving too quickly, becoming something unpredictable. They have ordered me to retrieve it and return it to the hegemony for study and possible reconfiguration." Susan's heart sank. After a week, everyone on the horizon had grown attached to Fluffy. The creature wandered freely through the ship, bringing smiles wherever it went. The thought of handing it over to be reconfigured was deeply troubling. "I understand your orders, Commander," she said carefully. "But I should warn you that my crew has formed strong bonds with Fluffy. Taking it away would be difficult. In the lab, Fluffy suddenly sat up straight, its ears twitching as if listening to something far away. Olivia noticed the change. "What is it?" she asked. Fluffy jumped down from its cushion and ran to the door, pawing at it urgently. When Olivia opened it, the creature darted into the corridor, moving faster than she had ever seen it move. "Where is it going?" Vexler asked. "I don't know, but we should follow it," Olivia replied, hurrying after Fluffy with the alien scientist close behind. Fluffy raced through the corridors of the horizon, passing surprised crew members. It seemed to know exactly where it was going. When it reached the bridge, it somehow managed to activate the door controls with its paws. Susan and Commander Zekthar turned in surprise as Fluffy burst into the room. The creature ran straight to Susan and began making urgent chirping sounds. "What's happening?" Susan asked as Olivia and Vexler caught up, slightly out of breath. "I don't know," Olivia said. "It just suddenly became agitated and ran here." Fluffy picked up a tablet from a nearby console and tapped at it frantically. The synthesized voice said, "No-go, stay, family." Commander Zekthar's compound eyes focused on the small creature. "Remarkable. It understood our conversation from across the ship." "The empathic field," Vexler said with wonder. "It must have sensed the commander's intentions." Fluffy's fur began to glow again, this time with pulses of many colors. It looked directly at Zekthar, and the air in the room seemed to thicken with emotion. Everyone present felt a complex wave of feelings: determination, hope, belonging, and something like love. Images flowed into their minds, Fluffy playing with crew members, helping in the lab, learning from humans and aliens alike. And beneath these memories was a powerful message, not in words, but in pure feeling. "I belong here. I am more than a weapon. I am myself." Commander Zekthar stood very still, his alien features unreadable. When Fluffy's glow faded, the commander turned to Susan. "Your species has changed this creature," he said. "Or perhaps it has changed itself because of you. Either way, it is no longer what the hegemony created." "Is that good or bad?" Susan asked. Zekthar was silent for a moment. "It is unexpected. The hegemony does not cope well with the unexpected, but I have learned much in this past week." He turned to address Fluffy directly. "You wish to stay with the humans?" Fluffy chirped an affirmative and tapped on its tablet. "Stay, learn, help." The commander made that complex gesture with his 6 arms again, the one that seemed ceremonial. "Then I will inform the council that retrieving you would be inadvisable. The diplomatic complications would be significant." Susan tried not to show her relief too openly. "Thank you, Commander." Zigthar turned back to her. "This does not resolve the larger situation between our peoples, Captain. But it does change it. If one creature can adapt so dramatically to cross the gap between our species, perhaps there are other possibilities we have not considered." 3 days later, the crews of both ships gathered in the horizon's largest bay to witness the signing of the first treaty between Earth and the galactic hegemony. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it established a research exchange and a 1-year period of non-aggression while both sides learned more about each other. In the center of it all sat Fluffy, now wearing a specially made collar that identified it as an official interspecies communication specialist. The creature that had been sent as a weapon of terror had become a symbol of unexpected connection. As Captain Susan Miller and Commander Zigthar pressed their thumbprints to the treaty document, human hand and alien claw side by side, Fluffy began to purr loudly enough for everyone to hear. "It seems pleased," Zigthar observed. Susan smiled. "It should be. None of this would have happened without it." The commander's mandibles moved in what might have been the alien equivalent of a thoughtful expression. "The hegemony has conquered 87 worlds across 12 star systems. We have never been stopped by force of arms." "And now?" Susan asked. Zigthar looked down at Fluffy, who gazed back with its 6 rainbow eyes. "Now we have been stopped by something we never anticipated, a weapon that became a bridge, fear that became understanding." He made a sound Susan had never heard before, possibly a laugh. "The universe, it seems, has a sense of humor," Fluffy chirped in agreement. "Sometimes, the most unexpected things turned out to be exactly what everyone needed."